have today. I ask that you give each member your full attention and respect. We will have time for questions after each presentation. Please help me by welcoming SFC Carol Thompson to Har-Ber.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Carol Thompson, and I live here. I've just moved to Springdale about a little over a year ago, so I'm still new to the area. And anyway, but I want to tell you a little bit about my story. I know I'm a lot older than some of the others that are here, but I joined the military right out of high school in 1974. Probably some of your parents might not even, I'm old enough to be your grandmother. So anyway, but I was going to school just like you were. It was a really nice school. I took all the business classes, and I really liked working with machines and stuff like that. Well, in our senior year, they would give us what we called an ASVAB, and I think they still have that same test. And it's an aptitude test to kind of see where you belong or what you excel at. It tests your administrative skills, it tests your mechanical skills, your general knowledge, and things like that. Similar to your ACT kind of in some ways when you're getting ready to go to college, but this is just for life in general, and it kind of lets you know. And so they based you on those scores. Well, I started getting calls. I took it in my senior year. They give it to you in the spring. And so you started getting calls from recruiters saying, hey, your scores were really good. You show an aptitude for, administration. You also have a lot of spatial recognition. And, they were just telling me all these things. And I'm like, I'm just a kid. And I'm like, okay. But I was always one of those kids that I didn't really know what I wanted to do other than I wanted to work in an office. I thought, okay, I want to get into a business. So I thought, well, I started talking to the Air Force recruiter. I thought, okay, I want to go in the Air Force. Well, in 1974, they didn't have a lot of slots for females. They were still, that was still kind of a new thing, women in the Army and women in any of the military. So it took a long time to get a position in the Air Force. I waited and waited. I graduated in like the very beginning of June, and that summer I kept sitting there thinking, okay, when are they going to call me? When am I going to get my information about when I'm going to leave? I was ready to go, and then it just kind of lingered on. So I took a few interview jobs, and I got interviewed, and all I kept hearing was, yeah, you've got some great office skills, but you don't have no experience. You can't, we can't hire you because you don't have enough experience. So I thought to myself, I said, well, how am I supposed to get experience if you're not willing to give me a chance? So about that time, the Army recruiter called me. And he goes, you sound like you're really seriously thinking about going in the military. And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. He said, well, I can get you out of here Monday. And this was like on a Saturday. I didn't even really talk to my parents much about it. I had made all these decisions. I was 18 already, so I said, I'm going to go ahead and say yes. So I told my parents, I said, I'm going to the Army. I'm leaving Monday. So I did. I got on a bus. They sent us down to New Orleans. That's the military entrance processing center for Louisiana. That was where I'm from. And so anyway, 1974, August 16th, I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for basic training. I was not in sports in high school. I had never really done any physical training to say of any kind of, thing. I got there. They train you, they teach you, they build you up to the point that you can do whatever. They put you out there. Luckily, I should say, in 1974, they weren't real strict with women. We still did kind of more of a frou-frou, I used to call it. We had classes. They would dress us up in cute little like shorts and shirt, and we'd get out there and we'd do calisthenics. Now that's what they did with the women. The guys, on the other hand, they were doing a whole different story. So we were still going through that time. We were in what they called the Women's Army Corps, so it was a little bit different than the actual Army itself. Still had to go out and qualify with a rifle, and I did that. I mean, we had girls, though. There was an incident one time that we're out doing night fire, and believe it or not, women back then carried little purses, even with their uniforms. We were in our, they're not like the camouflage he's wearing now. They used to just be all solid green. And this girl had her purse. We had been at the 25-meter shooting at night, and she had left her purse up on the 25. We fell back to the 50 to do some more firing. They had gone ready right, ready left, everybody take your rifles off of safety, and we were about to fire when all of a sudden we see this girl running up to the 25-meter to get her purse. So after that, nobody got to carry a purse out to the firing range, which was, you didn't need one anyway, but it was just still a new time, a new era for the females in the military. After I finished my basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, then I was going on to my individual training. Well, when I had been at the MEPS Center, they had called me back. They said, we need to talk to you about your scores. Your scores were really good. We want to recruit you for what is the Army Security Agency. Well, the Army Security Agency had basically only come out just a few years before because they had started using it in Vietnam. They had to have people that could copy Morse code and monitor communications and stuff like that. So it was like, we want to talk to you about that. So they said, you know, do you want to go into that? And I was looking at the jobs, and I see Morse code intercept operator, and I'm like, oh, I could never learn Morse code. So then the next line was non-Morse, cryptologic, radio, teletype, intercept operator. I said, I could probably do that because I saw the words non-Morse. And I said, okay, that means I'm not going to have to learn Morse code. Well, they trick you. You go in, and the first thing I did was I learned Morse code. Had to spend 14 weeks in Morse code school. You did it for 6 hours a day. They taught you how to copy Morse code. And you slept it, you drank it, you ate it. You heard Morse code everywhere. So I finally learned Morse code. And I thought, why do I have to do Morse code? I'm going to be a radio teletype interceptor. I'm going to copy the Russian signals. See, because the Russians would communicate. This is during the Cold War. The Cold War was a time, it was, we were never really in combat. But after World War II, the world had broken down into Western Bloc and Eastern Bloc. It was like the United States and England, or Britain, and then the Russian country, or everything on that side was the Eastern Blocs. It was still like the old countries like Poland, Czechoslovakia, everything that got when it got separated in World War II. So we monitored them, they monitored us. We had nuclear weapons pointing at them, they had weapons pointed at us. They would be exercising, which is not the word exercising, we call it a deployment, but they would be moving their units around, their resources around. We would follow them and do the same thing with ours. It was like a standoff. You know, we were trying to maintain world peace because World War II was supposed to be the war that ended all wars. But as we see in life, that doesn't happen. Anyway, so I was in this school learning about this and learning about Morse code. So I get stationed in Field Station Augsburg. When I had been with the recruiter, the other thing I asked him, because he kept telling me how good my scores were, was I want to go to Germany. I've never been to Germany. I want to go to Germany. Guarantee me Germany. He said, okay, you got it. It's yours. So as soon as I finished school, they sent me over to Germany. worked at Field Station Augsburg. Field Station Augsburg is a beautiful place, but it's a place you go in, it's total, you have to have a top secret special intelligence clearance. That meant when I went in the military, if I had not got my clearance, I would have probably turned into a cook or an MP. Instead, they go around and they take all your information, and then they go and check at everybody. They talk to your teachers that you had before. They talk to your neighbors. They talk to your clergy. They talk to everybody and find out what kind of person you are. Are you a person that has good ethics? Do you have morals? Do you have, or were you a partier and you're a drug addict and you can't handle, you could easily be turned to the other side is what it was. Because this was during times that you could call us a spy. We were spies. We were spying on them, they were spying on us, so you had to have good integrity. So anyway, got that, went to Field Station Augsburg, started working at the field station. Worked on a equipment that now is declassified, so I can even say the word R390s and things like that, but those are radio signal things. We have an antenna in Germany. Of course, it's not being used by the United States anymore, but we could pick up signals from everywhere in Russia. So at this time, we didn't have satellites like we have now. So this was a state of the art for 1970s. You gotta remember, it's a long time ago. And so we would copy signals that we would get from that side of the world. And we kept up with them. Every time they were getting ready to do something, we were watching them. There was hundreds of us working in this field station that we all had our set of signals that we were required. We had their names, we knew what cities they came from and who they were talking to, and we would follow them around. That's where the Morse code came in. They would do the radio signals in one channel, and they were dual channels, so they would send Morse code in the second channel, and we'd play chase. They would say, oh, she's listening, somebody's listening to us, so now we're gonna move. And so I would spend sometimes 8 hours chasing this signal all over the frequencies. And that was your job, I guess you could say. Hoping that we would get a signal like where they would do it was encrypted, so you were hoping you'd get a crypt key. You would hope they'd break it and make a mistake, and then you could pick them up. But anyway, that's just a little part of that. While I was in Germany, I met my husband, so he was also in the military. He was doing Morse code intercepting. He was doing a total different job, but still same type of business. We left Germany in 1977. We came back to the States. We wanted to go to college, so we thought, okay, we're gonna go ahead and get out of active duty, and we'll go into Army Reserves. And you can do that. We just pretty much transitioned into the Army Reserves, and then we went to college. And by being in the reserves, we went to drill once a month, and then we would do 2 weeks in the summer. And that way we got some money there. We started getting our GI Bill because the military paid for you to go to college. So we started making money that way. So we were going to college. We didn't have to really work. We had our GI Bill, we had our reserves, and then my husband joined the he became a ROTC, or ROTC, because he decided he wanted to train to become an officer. And so we were just living basically on our military. It provided us that opportunity. We both got our degrees, and then he went back into the active duty. So that required me, I was gonna stay in the reserves. I had to just find units everywhere we moved to, and I would stay in the reserves. So I spent 19 years in the reserves and 3 years in the actual active Army. So 22 years and I retired. But all this time I was also working. I've been a teacher for over 20-something years. I retired a few years back. So it gives me that opportunity. The values I learned, because I always liked machines and technology, so I became a technology teacher. So it did transfer over. I was able to, even though we didn't really have computers back then. It's still the same policy. I learned it. I took advantage of everything I could with the military, and became a finance person also. Got to go to different countries. Got to spend 3 weeks in Egypt once. Not like Afghanistan, I'm glad, but we were training for that Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever. So anyway, we were learning things like that. I retired, and now I am just a stay-at-home mom. I am glad that was in the military. I'm very proud. I'm proud of our country. I always was. I mean, in high school, still was always ready to stand up for my flags. I was never quavered as far as that goes. I was in during the Vietnam era, they call it. I mean, I was never sent to Vietnam, but Vietnam was going on when I joined, and it didn't officially end until July of 1975. But when our guys came home, they were not honored, and they were not given any kind of reception. I mean, most people were very against Vietnam. We used to sit and watch the TV every day. When I was in high school, the age you are, every afternoon or every night, they would put the draft numbers, because there was still the draft going on, which was not a proud time that we had to do that to get people to go in the military. And they would draw your number, and if they drew your number, you had to go. And then when they came back, they were mistreated. And finally, we as a country have now realized that they did what they were told to do. They were patriotic, and they did what, so we should thank them, especially the Vietnam vets, I think. There's a lot of them around here. If you see somebody with a hat on, don't be afraid to say, hey, thanks for your service. I sometimes even have a hard time telling somebody else, and I don't know why, because, it's like it's part of who I am. But we need to honor them, and I'm glad y'all are doing this. I appreciate the opportunity, and I probably didn't touch on everything, but thank you very much.
All right. Please help me by welcoming Sergeant Ray Medley. Or no, my bad. Please help me welcoming Corporal E4 Justice Charles from the USMC.
What's up, guys? All right. My name is Justin Charles. I graduated from Springdale in 1998. Some kind of a Springdale boy. Coach Benson, who helped me with this, or actually asked me to come speak, was my junior high civics teacher in 7th grade. So we go way back. So I'm just going to speak about a little bit about my background, and then what it means for me to serve in the military and some of the stuff I've done. So after high school, I actually kind of joined the Army. Went to Fort Benning, Georgia, got there and did not like it. Refused to train. 2 months later, they kicked me out. I went home, and that feeling of quitting on my government, or not my government, but my country, my family, and my community really haunted me inside. I've never quit anything in my life, and so it really affected me personally. So when 9/11 came around, I watched the second plane hit the towers, and I knew right then and there I needed to do something about that. I needed to fix that problem that I made for myself. So I drove up to the mall in Fayetteville, walked right into the Marine recruiting office, ended up seeing a friend of mine who was a recruiter there, and joined. And 3 weeks later, I'm in San Diego in boot camp. From that point on, I went into the infantry school. I actually chose infantry, even though I scored extremely high on the ASVAB test. But I wanted to fight. I wanted to get back at the people who terrorized our country on that day. It was just something that was enraged inside me, and I had to take care of it. I wanted to do my part. So I chose to go fight. I went through the infantry, and then I went on to do some more specialized training from that point on. I'm thinking I'm going to go to Afghanistan, where our enemies were at the time, Al-Qaeda and Taliban. Unbeknownst to me, we were getting ready to go to Iraq for reasons I don't know at the time. So we decided, our government decided that Iraq was a bigger threat. So we go to Iraq. There in 2003, it was a very heavy combat deployment. Saw a lot of bad things, saw some good things. Came home. Thankfully, I survived. Second deployment comes around. I'm thinking I'm going to go to Afghanistan. Finally, I got my chance to go. Nope, you're going right back to Iraq. So my recruiter kind of lied to me. He told me I was going to go see the world and wear my dress blues and go to all these parties and everything. And I ended up seeing the desert mostly. So it wasn't a bad experience, but wasn't the best. So go my second deployment. Another very heavily combat-ridden deployment. Unfortunately, lost a lot of good friends. Thankfully, I survived with minimal damage. Came home. I got off active duty in 2006, and I was missing that sense of purpose in life, that sense of duty that the Marine Corps instilled in me. They taught me how to learn to deal with stressful situations properly and stuff. And so I had a lot of anger inside, a lot of pent-up aggression, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I'm telling you guys these things because sometimes, in school, I remember in high school getting so frustrated that I just blew up. I got angry. I let it control me. The Marine Corps taught me how to control that and harness that and turn it into a positive manner or a positive outcome. So that point on, a friend of mine found me and asked me if I wanted to come work with him overseas for this security program. So I signed up, or I applied for this job, got the job, and I worked for a company called Blackwater. I did 2 years with them in Afghanistan, protecting U.S. diplomats, ambassadors, senators, congressmen that would come over, foreign diplomats. So that was when I got to see the world. That was when I got to travel a little bit more. From that point on, I ran into an old high school friend of mine while I was over there, and he worked for a different agency. And I asked him what he was doing, and he told me I work for these people, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then about 3 weeks later, I get an email from him, and he's like, hey, I want to know if you want to come join me on this program. And I was like, yeah, sure, what is it? And so then he tells me, and I'm like, oh, I'm game. Let's do this, It allowed me to further my career, further what I'm doing now. So what it was is it was doing similar stuff, protecting people, but this was for the Central Intelligence Agency. Wasn't a spy, wasn't like the movies or anything of that nature. I was more of a protective role. I protected officers who went out into really bad areas where they couldn't protect themselves because they just don't have the life skills or the military combat skills that I did. So they bring in people like me and my friends, special operations type guys, or guys that know how to fight and know how to be calm in stressful situations. And so from that point on, I spent about 12 years with them. And then March 2020 came around. And obviously, COVID hit. A lot of things shut down. I could not get back overseas for my job. And I took a hard look at my life, and I realized my last deployment was my 43rd deployment in 20 years in a foreign country. I spent those 20 years in 6 different countries and 3 different continents. I figured I had enough. It took my relationship. It took me away from birthdays, all kinds of stuff. I don't want to tell you that, or I'm not telling you that to persuade you not to go into military service. I think military service is great. But I do want to give you the highs and the lows of everything. So that point on, I decided, okay, it's time to come home, time to find a real job. Went to work briefly for Walmart corporate, and through that, I met some people that very, very wealthy human beings that needed some sort of protection, some security work, and so that's what I do for them now. So basically, everything I've been doing for the last 20 years I've learned as a life skill, I'm applying to my job now as a civilian. And I got to tell you, it's one of the most rewarding things ever. But I would have never had those life skills if I had not gone back to the military, if I had not gone into the Marine Corps, if I had not pushed through that adversity that I was dealing with in my own mind. And I'm telling you that because no matter what you do in life, whether you go into college, whether you go into the military, whether you go into the business world, or whatever it is, keep pushing through because eventually it's going to pay off. And keep learning everything that you can. Soak up all the knowledge you can that you've taken from all the time that you've learned from either college, the military, or whatever. Any tidbit of information someone's given to you, it's useful. And so that's kind of where I want to go with that. So with that, it also gave me a sense of purpose and duty to my country, to my fellow person. And then also traveling overseas so much gave me a better outlook on life as a human. Learning about other cultures, learning that there's more than just everything else. There's more than stuff than here in Northwest Arkansas. I've been here for a long time, and I've seen Northwest Arkansas grow from being a predominantly one kind of demographic to the most multicultural area I've ever been in. And it's amazing. It reminds me of a foreign country in a way. Lots of different cultures here. And it gives you a better perspective on how to be a better human being to each other. Everything I learned in the Marine Corps, humility, discipline, tenacity, mental fortitude, has taught me how to be a better human to someone else, to respect somebody for who they are and not judge them on what they believe in, or whether they got this political belief or they're this sexuality or this gender or whatever. It just makes you a better human. And I thank the Marine Corps for that. I thank the military for that in general. And I thank my government work for that. So let me, I'll just cut to questions. Has anybody got any questions about anything? Yes.
What was your most inspirational thing you saw, like you were during this journey?
Most inspirational thing I've ever seen was in Iraq in 2004. My unit went to a place called Fallujah, Iraq. You may have heard of it. Some may have heard of it. Some may not. Fallujah was a city about the size of Springdale and Fayetteville put together. And we went house to house to beat out and root out the terrorists that were there. These people were terrorizing the people of Fallujah, killing them left and right, just mass atrocities. We were on an op one day, and this gentleman brought his lifeless little girl, 6 years old, over to us and gave her to me, dumped her in my hands, and said, "Please help, please help." I didn't know what to do because the little girl was unfortunately dead. My doc and I, my doc passed away many years ago, but him and I at the time, we tried to revive this girl to help this man. And he stopped us and he said, "I know she's gone." He's telling this in Arabic, and he's telling our translator, but he says, "I know she's gone, but can you find the person that did this?" And we made a promise to him, and we did. It took us about 6 weeks, but we found the guy who killed her. We found the guy who built the bomb, the same bomb that blew me up. Or the same bomb maker that blew me up in my team, where I lost 3 guys. We found the guy, and we got that revenge for that man and for that little girl. And to this day, I still remember her name. Delilah. And that was one of the most inspirational things, because that man, at the time, he hated us. He was one of them. But when they killed his little girl, he changed his mind. He realized, I don't want to be in this anymore. I need something, I need a better life. That's what he chose. So he asked us to make his life better for him. So that's what we did. And that was one of the most inspirational things I could think of for my life. It changed me for good. So, and I still think about that little girl to this day. So, but anybody else? Questions? Is anybody in here thinking about serving the Marine military or going anywhere? Yes. What do you think about doing? Join the Air Force? Okay. I would suggest to you to get a mentor who knows about the Air Force. They can teach you the good, the bad parts of it, and just kind of like guide you in the proper way. Because a lot of, and it may change since I've been in, but a lot of recruiters, and Sergeant Medley can attest to this sometimes, some recruiters just say whatever they can to get you in. Others don't. Others actually, like him, will explain to you like what is going on and how to do things properly. So that's my biggest suggestion to you. But find out what it is you would think you want to do in there, and then keep building upon that. Don't think you can go. You have to go in to fight. There's plenty of other jobs in the military that you can do. Like our other speaker, she went into cryptology and stuff, and that was very rewarding for her. I mean, even today, a cryptologist can make so tons and tons of money. So there's all that kind of stuff too. So just kind of point yourself in a sense of direction to where set yourself up for success. So for the long run. But I tell you, it's worth it though, no matter what branch. So anybody else? Nothing? Okay. Well, all right. Well, thanks guys. Appreciate it. It was a pleasure to be here. So.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming today. Thank you to our veterans. I really just want to appreciate all of you guys. You guys did wonderful. Thank you guys for serving. And we actually have about 6 minutes left. So teachers, if you want to go ahead and take your kids back to the classroom, get ready to head out of school. Or if you have a few students who want to talk to any of our veterans, go ahead and stick around for that too. Thank you guys.